Good morning, I'm Julio Saenz along with Mauricio Riveros. Today we'll meet Steve Carl, Chief Executive Officer of High Probability Advisors in Pittsford, New York.
We hope you will be inspired.
Celebrating leaders in Rochester's unique and vibrant business community, we'll meet entrepreneurs whose passion and perseverance have helped push through life's challenges. Join us as we share their stories and journeys to success. It's time to be inspired.
Steve, thank you very much for being Be Inspired, a show that we created to inspire our community and to highlight people like you who have been innovators, people who have invested and create business. But let's start to know, who is Steve?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. I'm very excited to be here. But who is Steve Carl? Well, I think my mom said it best. She always said, "You're very lucky," and I think I am very lucky. I was lucky to be born in a great family and born and raised right here in Rochester, New York. And I was lucky that my parents went for 6 kids. I'm the youngest of 6. So I'm glad they didn't stop at 5. So I'm very lucky in that regard. And I'm a family man. So I was lucky that my wife Sandra said yes, and now we have a great family of 4 boys that we're raising in Rochester, and they're just doing fantastic, and just a great place. I knew it was a great place to grow up, and I know it's a great place to raise a family, and it's also a great place to do business, and that's why I'm lucky to have the people in my life that I was able to partner with and was able to start a few businesses, and we're continuing to grow here, like based out of Rochester. So,
Steve, your life is amazing. It's very interesting. So tell us about how you started. How started maybe working under a company or built a company. How everything started?
It's an interesting, when you look back, it's an interesting path, because when I went to University of Rochester, I was pre-med. I thought I wanted to be a doctor. My brother's a doctor, and I thought, oh, that's the path I was going to follow. And then I realized I couldn't stand the sight of blood, and I didn't like the smell of a hospital, so what am I doing? So my brother said, I always thought you'd go into law. So I went into law, and I went to law school and came back and started practicing law here. And it was a great opportunity, because you see so many things in law. You see a lot of different businesses. And that was great for me, because I got a chance to interact with the business people and understand what they were trying to accomplish, and you're trying to help them in the law. And then I had the great fortune of becoming the general counsel for a large investment firm, Manning Napier in Rochester, in the mid-90s, when it was a crazy, interesting time in the investment world. And it was a great experience, and just from there I had the opportunity. Then Mike Jones at Clover Capital recruited me over, and at a young age I was able to become the chief operating officer and then the president of that company, which was just a fantastic opportunity. And that got me into different things. And Young Presidents Organization, which is a phenomenal organization helping business leaders across the world. And interestingly, where was it started? Right here in Rochester, New York. And another one of those things we exported, unfortunately. It's headquartered in Dallas, Texas. But I had the opportunity to become part of that, and I learned from other business people. And that inspired me to understand, where I was hired into businesses before, to say, I want to create a business. I want to be entrepreneurial. And it's been a fascinating ride to be from where I started of thinking I wanted to be a doctor, then to practicing law, to working in businesses, to actually starting businesses.
Amazing. It's an amazing journey.
Oh, thanks.
Sounds like you had a lot of fun as well along the way. So tell us a little more about the Young Presidents Club. Is that the name of the organization?
It's Young Presidents Organization, so YPO they call it. It's fascinating. I highly recommend it to anybody, and I've mentioned to you, Mauricio. There's 27,000 CEOs and presidents of decent-sized companies. There's a certain requirements of 10 million or more in revenue and such across the world. And it started in 1950 here by Ray Hickok. So if you say to anyone in the world who's in this Young Presidents Organization that you're from Rochester, the birthplace of YPO, they will know that. And Rochester's on the map within that organization. But it's fantastic, and what you end up doing is you end up having a forum, which is your own board of directors almost. So other people in the community, other business leaders, and you meet once a month. And it sounds like a lot, but it's I can't even imagine without it what I would have done on the business side. It's phenomenal, and the people that I have in my forum have been life-changing, because they've been advisors, not just on helping me further my business interests, but also family issues, personal issues. They're there for you, and then you have this greater community that's actually an interesting worldwide network that you have. I was thinking of, for you guys, because we've spoken before about Hispanic opportunities and such, and the gentleman who's the chair of the Latin American region he and I run a few committees together. He reached out to me recently about my new business. He said, geez, maybe there's a way we can collaborate. So we're in the process of looking at that. And those are the things that happen in YPO. So it's crazy.
Well, that's powerful.
Yeah.
And it's very important to have this type of advisors and people who are not really interested directly, but they have the capacity and the wisdom to share with you. Now, tell us a little bit about the business and the business that you are running today.
Yeah.
How's the business? What are the services that you provide? What do you do?
Yes, well, my main business that I'm focused in is High Probability Advisors. So that's a investment management firm. It's a registered investment advisor. So we also do wealth management for individuals, institutions, so endowments and foundations, retirement plans. So we do all of that. So previously I'd had Clover Capital Management, which we got to about $4.5 billion in assets under management before we'd sold that business. And then a couple years ago, Mike Jones, who I worked with at Clover, we talked about if we were gonna start something new, and if you could start with a blank sheet of paper and do it the way you think it should be done based on decades of experience, based on all the academic research that's out there, how would you do it? And that's what we did with High Probability. And why we call it High Probability is because you can't guarantee nothing's guaranteed in the investment world or in anything really, but if you can do all the things that increase the probability of success, we try to stack those up and put those together, and we're just trying to give our clients the highest probability of success of meeting their financial goals or investment goals, and that's what we're doing. And interestingly, we're probably 4 or 5 months after we started the business, the Bonadillo Group, which is another Rochester large organization. They're one of the largest accounting firms in the country, kind of based here in Rochester. I think it sometimes goes under the radar screen a little bit. After we'd started, they said, that's what we want. We like what you're doing. You're doing low cost, very tax efficient, risk managed investment strategies, which is what they want for their clients. So they've invested in us, and we've partnered with them. So what we put together, I think, is really unmatched, because our investment expertise, along with their tax and estate planning and business succession planning, they have a myriad of other affiliates that they have. They have a cybersecurity unit. They have a tremendous offering. So we can put all that together for individual clients, for business clients, for retirement plans. So it's really exciting what we're doing.
And you have quite a few things going on. Tell us a little bit about what this Operation Brain Freeze is.
Yes, Operation Brain Freeze is near and dear to my heart. And it's fun because it's a fun story too, where the name came from. Operation Brain Freeze is the Dairy Queen franchise that I have with another partner, Mark Goldberg, who's just a phenomenal operator. And I get a question a lot of like, where'd you come up with the name Operation Brain Freeze? And when we were trying to get the rights to Dairy Queen, we didn't have them yet, but my kids knew something was going on. So I said, okay, we're gonna have we have to come up with a code name. I told them we're trying to bring Dairy Queen to Rochester, and they said, okay, and they all boys, so they're come up with military thing, Operation something, and I said, no, it's gotta have something to do with ice cream. And TJ, who is 7 years old at the time, snaps his finger and looks at me and says, I got it. Operation Brain Freeze. That's what, and I said, and then we ended up naming the company that too, so it's been fantastic. But what that is we operate Dairy Queen Grill and Chills here in Rochester, Buffalo, Syracuse, and Albany. And I've really just I helped it get going and finance it and kind of done the legal work and stuff like that. The real true hero in that one is Mark Goldberg. He's my partner. It's always about getting the right people involved, and Mark's been phenomenal and just been an excellent operator and partner. But that's been exciting. And when we opened the first location in Henrietta, it set the record for opening day sales, opening week sales, opening month sales. So it was just a huge, exciting thing. And I think it goes back to my mom's theme. I'm a lucky person. Yeah. So it really, luckily, it started out well.
Absolutely. And how did you think Dairy Queen would do so well here in Rochester?
It's interesting because what I loved about it, when I looked, my friend Mark was always pitching me ideas. We could do this, we could do that. And I was coming back from Pennsylvania, and I had to give up an expressway just to get gas. And I noticed there was a McDonald's, a Burger King, a Wendy's, and a Dairy Queen, and we didn't have Dairy Queen here. And I said, oh, that's interesting. And I looked it up, and I saw that Warren Buffett owns all the Dairy Queens. It's a Berkshire Hathaway company. I said, well, we can't go wrong, partnering with Warren Buffett. He was a big hero of mine. And we looked into it further, obviously, but once we got it going, we said, geez, the market is completely open. It's differentiated because they really focus on, in that category, of being very high quality food. But then the treats they have, all the ice cream and the blizzards and such, I'm a personal fan, so I
am
said,
too.
well, my going through the store alone, I think, keeps our sales up. So we had a feeling, but we had no expectation of what it would do. What happened is that first day, I'm standing there, and I was just more in a suit, having cut the ribbon, and my partner Mark is running around like a chicken with his head cut off because it's crazy, and people were coming up to me saying, you know, I was going to do this. We had probably that first day 20 people say they were going to bring Dairy Queen to Rochester, and then in the first week probably over 100 people said that was their idea to do it. But they grew up in other places like Georgia or, you know, the Midwest where there were Dairy Queens, and they missed it. So the brand had already attracted people because we didn't advertise at all. Without any advertising, just the strength of that brand brought people in that first day, week, month, you know.
Thank you, Steve. We'll be back with more after these messages.
What I love is your capacity to multitask and see opportunities and be creative. What is the message to our audience about reinvent yourself and be able to deal with change?
Yes.
What is the key?
You know, I think the biggest key, and I saw Colin Powell, former Secretary of State, speak about this, and it just really resonated. It's what I thought as well on entrepreneurial opportunities, is don't wait for everything to be perfect. And I think so many times, and I've talked to other people, and they feel like they have to have everything lined up, and it sounds great. It sounds like you'd want to have everything just buttoned up and nailed down completely. But he said, if in military situations, he said, you can't wait for that. The battle's over if you wait for all the information to come in before you make a decision. So you've got to get you do your homework the best you can. You line it up. You trust you have your passion. You have to have an entrepreneurial spirit too. But then you have to take a leap of faith. In some level, there's a leap of faith, and you've got to be able to do that. And that would be my recommendation for people. And I do get this a lot. If people ask me, what would you say? What would you recommend to me? And that's it. Just, you know, as best you can, have things lined up, but be ready to take that leap of faith. Don't wait for it to be perfect.
Mm-hmm. And working in the world of investments and business, and we have a lot of entrepreneurs that watch the show, or want to be entrepreneurs that are thinking about something. How do you see the availability of venture capital in Rochester? I've heard from some people that it's different than in other parts of the country.
Yes, that is true. I think we lag in that. I know there's a lot of people focused on that and people that are trying to solve that issue. I think if you looked at like a Silicon Valley, there's a lot of businesses starting there because there is a lot of venture capital available in that area. And people are trying to do that here. I mentioned the Bonadillo Group earlier. Tom Bonadillo is partnering with some people to create Impact Capital, another group that he has. And the whole purpose of that is to help people develop businesses here in Rochester and Western New York. So it's nice to see somebody trying to do that, focus that way. But that's one thing. We need more of that to occur to help keeping those businesses here, because you do need capital. But I will say the one thing that I've seen with Rochester that's unique, well, a couple things. One is that I think we do have I think people just have an entrepreneurial spirit here. I think a lot of people, more so than a lot of places, I think we do have that capacity here. I think the other thing is we have a lot of people that are willing to be mentors to people, business mentors. There's a lot that, you know, Kodak and Xerox aren't what they once were in Bausch & Lomb. But the nice thing is there's a lot of great business people that went through those halls and are still in the area that are more than willing to share that knowledge and to help people and further that along. So I think those are two key elements that are really in our favor.
Mm. And that's wonderful and powerful to see how Rochester was able to recreate itself.
Yes.
And now in that environment, Rochester and projections, you guys are looking, and no one has the crystal ball, right. So we are not expecting a perfect answer on this, but what's the projections? What do you see, Rochester and nationally? How do you see, are we close to a slowdown, or what's the perspective?
Yeah, well, we don't try to, interesting, it's a question we get a lot. We don't try to time the market. That's one of the things we do. So we take a long view of things. So when you look and say, geez, the market has been up, if you look at the investment market, it's been up pretty steadily for a while. So there's probably, at some point, as normal cycles happen, there's probably some pullback. I think the interesting thing for Rochester is that when we've had some of the bigger players, Kodak and Xerox and Bausch & Lomb, that have pulled back, and yet Rochester is filled in with a lot of the smaller businesses, so it has absorbed that. When you looked at the local, when they talked about the real estate market in Rochester was the best real estate market, and it's a lot because we've already absorbed a lot of the losses from the major companies pulling back. So I think as long as now if we filled that in, and if we can continue to build out these smaller businesses and let the smaller businesses become mid-sized businesses and then become yet larger businesses, I think that's our hope. The one thing I'm concerned about is not so much the spirit in Rochester, but that New York State, the regulatory environment tends to be something that holds us back. If we can do something on that level, I think that would free things up to really allow things to thrive much greater. But there's definitely a mixed message coming from the state as far as being business friendly. But my hope is that we continue to see the growth and people with their entrepreneurial spirit continue to overcome that.
Wow, very good advice.
Okay.
It's high probability.
I appreciate it.
Now, what do you see? And you're very involved in the community as well?
Yeah.
What are some of the types of things you get involved in?
The University of Rochester, I've done a lot with them. I'm an alumni there. My oldest son, James, is starting his second year. He's playing on the football team there and studying mechanical engineering. So I'm very excited about that as an alumni. And so I'm on the leadership council there with the president. I've done some of the things, the George Eastman Circle. I've been involved. There's a couple other businesses that I'm involved with on the board. I've done a lot with the Young Presidents Organization and what we do. That's right. Kind of charitable organizations through there. So it's a lot, and it's funny because like through the Dairy Queens, we sponsor just about every group out there, I feel like, and then which we're happy to do. We love that community event. One of the things that's probably nearest and dearest to my heart is the Golisano Children's Hospital. And through the organizations, we're able to sponsor and have naming rights for in the new building for the eighth floor waiting room. And we just made a major commitment for the new building, which is going to focus on mental health. It's a special thing in our family for mental health facilities and such. So we're going to have a room that's going to be named after him. So I'm very, very excited about
fantastic.
that. Yeah.
Well, I love that element, that you really understand that creation of wealth is also for distribution. And I think that's extremely important to understand that. And we see in Rochester a significant spirit of giving back to community. And thank you for doing that. Now, Steve, technology, the world is changing.
Yes.
And a person like you who is an innovator, creative, how do you see technology and what are the opportunities that you see out there?
You know, a lot of I appreciate the question because a lot of our business, we can do our new business high probability, I think much better than we could have done our old business for the very reason of technology. We're taking advantage of new systems that weren't available 5 years ago. We're taking advantage of big data, of artificial intelligence that we can now, the programs that we're buying, the risk management software that we utilize and such that are doing all kinds of scenario testing and Monte Carlo simulations. So those are all aspects of technology that we're incorporating in our business. But I think you're going to see that in every business. If you're not doing that, you're not going to be able to keep up. And that's why we purposely structured our business to be flexible, because so many get focused on their legacy issues and don't improve on the technology side and say, this is how we do it, this is how we've always done it. And we're not going to get locked into that. Whatever's happening on the technology side, we want to stay abreast of and make sure we're ready to incorporate any of those developments as they come along.
Steve, what an honor to have you here in our program. I'm sure that we will have in the future, again, the honor to have you here. Again, thank you so much for being in Be Inspired and for all the incredible wisdom that you shared today.
Oh, thank you for having me. Thank you guys for what you do.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mauricio. Thanks, Ilya.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Coming up next week, we will sit down with Jason Barrett, the CEO of one of Inc. magazine's fastest growing companies in America. To watch today's episode and the complete interviews of our guests, go to rochesterfirst.com/be-inspired. For more great talk with Rochester's entrepreneurs, listen to Poder 97.1 Saturdays at 9 a.m. For Mauricio Riveros, I'm Julio Saenz. We'll see you next week on Be Inspired.